Hey, so I just finished a new version of Palutte, which means it's time for another explanation video because a lot's changed. If you've not looked at Palutte before, it is this. It is a system for rendering your Unity game with a very specific colour palette, and it does some pixelization and dithering as well if you want that kind of thing. It works with a whole bunch of palettes, and yeah, I'll talk you through. I'll talk you through how it works. Sorry, I just like looking at it sometimes. Okay, so there's two aspects to it. I'll just go to the example scene. Like this is the example that comes with it. There's two aspects. There is the palette effect, this thing here, which will go on a camera and do the rendering and all of that stuff. And there is also the palette generator, which is here, and you can also, I'll talk through that in a minute. That's what generates lookup tables for the screen effect to work with. So here you can see it's rendering. Let's just turn off maximize on play and have it running so that you can see, you know, it's converting what the camera sees into whichever palette we've provided, which is the 332 RGB palette. There's a whole bunch that come included. We can change out the color palette. I've got some, like I say, some included. We could try the Game Boy palette. Game Boy palette's nice. Pico 8 works as well. I like the Pico 8 palette. It's really good. And you know, so it's other stuff too. It works. The lookup tables, the default now is 16 by 16, but it can work with other dimensions of lookup table too. So if you want 16 by 1, you just drop the lookup table there and you say, oh, it's only 16 by 1. That will mess up if it's not a 16 by 1, but my goodness, that effect is nice. I like that. Yeah. Then we set the pixel width and height. We can match the camera size if we want. So like if we zoom in, we can see it's still dithering and doing stuff, but super sharp. So if you want it to be like not pixely looking, but still have your custom palette, that is a way to go. We can set the width and the height here. We can have many pixels wide, few pixels wide, many pixels tall, fewer pixels tall. Or if you check one of these, it will basically automatically set the size. So I've got the width automatically set, so when I scale the height, everything else scales and it preserves the squareness. But if you don't want square pixels, because, you know, some people want to, like, emulate certain systems where the pixels are wider, you can do that. So you tweak it like that. And it works the same way for adjusting the height too. You can have the height automatically match how many pixels wide it is. It all works. It all just works. I like to set the width automatically and then specify how many pixels tall it is. So, you know, 320 like is PS1 resolution, I think, vertically. So that's something I'm working on at the moment, a kind of a PS1-y kind of a thing. Anyway, let's bring that down so you can actually see it. Because next we're talking about the dithering. We can set that just way down to 0 if you want absolutely no dithering. It's fine, it works, and then you can just bring it up as needed. Up at the top end, you will get very extreme. Normally you're not going to want to dither that much unless you're using a lookup table with very few colours, a palette with very few colours in it. I can pull one here. Let's see, 27 colours? I feel like we can do lower than that. 16 colours. So yeah, like a little bit of dithering doesn't quite do everything you might want, so you might want to just give it up. And generally, the more dithering you'll have, the kind of better an impression you'll get at a distance, but closer up, like if someone's like their eyeballs are right on the screen, that's going to hurt to look at. So I like to have, you know, a kind of a mid-range kind of palette, 32 colours in this, and then bring the dithering kind of just down a bit. It's going to vary between different palettes what's going to work. And then we've got this just Jaggy's a good preference. You can barely see this. I will just zoom in right on the top of this so we can see it. Yeah, it's not actually anti-aliasing if you disable Jaggies, but it just changes the filter mode to point to preserve the Jaggies. So if you really want those Jaggies, which you do, like Jaggies are good, it's there. I think that's that. That's the entirety of using this shader. It works like any other image effect. You can enable it, disable it, put it earlier, later in the stack. Works with other image effects too. It's pretty straightforward. We'll say stop that, and I will talk about the palette generator, which is you can find it window palette generator right there, and that'll make this pop up. Wait a second, am I missing anything? The setup and the properties. Oh yeah, for setting that up, you can find the palette effects just in palettes, and then inside palette effect, you just drop the script onto your camera, drop the material on, and also a lookup table. It's, you know, material, lookup table, you're good to go. It's fine. So, generating those lookup tables, you know, they have to come from somewhere. The palette generator is what makes them. What you'll do is you will import a palette into Unity. These are all pretty, you know, you can't really see them. They're tiny, and it's best if they're tiny. Ideally, you want like just 1 pixel for each color in your palette, because more pixels, more colors makes the lookup texture generation go a lot slower. So we're going to start with yeah, this one that I made earlier. This one's 4x4. Yeah, so it's going to be a 16 color texture. There's another warning. Oh yeah, you need to make sure that your texture is set to read-write enabled, otherwise the generator won't be able to look at the pixels. Also, I'd advise setting compression to none, and I don't think any of the other settings matter. I set the filter mode to point just in case, and clamp as well, but I don't think those make a difference. Anyway, the LUT generation settings, I actually prepared this before. So the LUT tile size is basically how many pixels are between here and here. So and the tiles are square. So if it's 64 pixels, then that's going to be 64. That's going to be 64. That's all that is. Tiles X and tiles Y, pretty standard. How many of these? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, that's X and then Y. So that's, you know, you know what kind of size lookup texture you're going to get. At present, the default settings for palette are 16 by 16, and you can change that. It's fine if you want to change it. It's just more tiles means you get a kind of a greater precision in blueness. In blueness. I know that sounds kind of awkward, but if you feel like you're just kind of not getting the impression of blue in your renders, then you know, you can whack it up. Like the default used to be just 16 by 1, but you know, I've since started using larger lookup tables with like 512 colors, and I really want that extra blueness. Anyway, that's all that is. We can, at this point, if we want, just generate a lookup table. I'm gonna, like, whilst we're working, we'll do 16 by 1, just because it's fewer tiles to generate, and it's gonna happen quicker. Like the more pixels you've got, you've got in your lookup texture, the longer it's going to take to calculate it. So for, yeah, just generating a test texture, that will show us kind of the ideal lookup texture for this thing. And it's obviously is ignoring my palette. This is pure color, pure RGB, sRGB color. So, you know, that's kind of a comparison. And then we can see, just generate based on this palette that I've provided. It's it's kind of somewhere. And you know, in a lot of cases, I can just save this new palette. Look, yes, replace it. New in this version of Palutte is it automatically sets the import settings, so you don't need to worry about them. So I can just take that new palette LUT, put it in there, and I know it's 16 by 1, and it's gonna work. But I might say I don't quite like the way the colours are distributed here, or maybe I want the let's get it back. Maybe I want more like value influence, so like the light and dark is more important to me than matching the RGB colours. So you can change how things are weighted here, and you know, just in different colour spaces. And let's bring up some like hue influence as well in there, and you know, and then you can save it and see what changes, and kind of get a feel for how you want it to be, really. I'll talk through the different things. Generally, put things to 0, it won't influence the outcome at all. In fact, I think if everything's 0, it's just going to generate a grey lookup texture. Oh, black. Yeah, nice. Nice black. Yeah. We can say, you know, I care about the hue and the saturation, and only a little bit of the value. Like, the value is not so important. Normally you won't want that. You'll want it kind of more value than saturation, things like that. But it's going to vary depending on your palette, what you want influenced. The CIE L star AB is another kind of color space, just like RGB, just like HSV. It's just it's closer to the way the human eye works. So if you want things to appear kind of the same, that's kind of the way to go. But it's a lot slower to generate, and also it's got it'll really overpower other stuff. So like if I try and say equal influence of RGB and lab, it's gonna be barely noticeable. See, it didn't change. So you really want to knock this like right down if you want to have anything else influence it. We've got to go weaker than that. Goodness me. Come on, come on. There you go. So that's kind of a balance between RGB and lab's color space. And I feel like that might be a good one. Let's see that one. Yeah, see, that's feeling nicer, I think. Yeah, and I think that's pretty much it. What else do I need to talk about? Palette images, you know how to import those. The tile explanation, the color influence. I mean, I think we're pretty good. So at this point, I might just talk about like changes since the last version. What do we have? What do we have here? Support for 2D grid, lookup textures. Oh yeah, I fixed it. There was some nasty visual errors before. They're gone. They're gone. Oh yeah, the generator will keep working even when you tab out. So if I click generate, I can just go away and open Notepad or something, and oh goodness, and it's still working in the background there. It's still working. It'll go like a little bit faster if your if Unity's got focus, but now it's working. I changed the names of some stuff. This is now a custom editor. If you couldn't tell, it's all super slick. Yeah, I think we're good. So let me know on Twitter or whatever if you get stuck with any of this or whatever. And if you find this useful, please consider leaving me a tip on itch.io or consider becoming a patron or just saying, hi, I liked your thing, because I appreciate when people say they like my things. So, yeah. Okay, that's it. Bye. Have a nice day.